Okay, in the dummies 4, um, I'm not gonna really try to dissect what this does. The only reason I can put this in there is because it's use of the friend, you know, uh, keyword. Um, but this is such a stupid example. I mean, I could not even remotely understand what the fuck they were trying to talk about. This is the dumbest application of objects I think I've ever seen. Terrible example, but what they're trying to demonstrate is not entirely crazy. And what this really is doing is we got nested classes here. But this is worth typing in because, we deal with nested classes in Chili's framework all the time. He's really fond of them. In fact, he's covered that before covering inheritance, for crying out loud. So, but what Chili does is he defines his classes within his main class. But this is a way of, if you wanted to define the class outside of the main class, this is the syntax of how you do it. So he's got this connection class that he's declaring inside of this class here. So it's a nested class, but he's actually defining it outside of that, and defining, this function here, which is part of this class there, but also defining this connect function, which is part of this derived or this nested class. So it's not a derived class, this is nested, it's not an inheritance, it's actually an independent class that's completely contained within this other class. And since it's declared private, that means, its members are completely inaccessible. That includes variables and functions. But you don't have to do it that way. Like Chili, most of his stuff's public, but you can have public and private members, or protected or whatever you want to do in your nested class. I mean, it's a full class. It's just contained, within a main class. Now, he goes and uses the friend keyword here because this thing is private, and if you make a let's see, got the hard work function would be accessible. I don't really know why the fuck he's using the friend keyword here. See, this is protected data, so he's saying friend ethical competition. But again, since class is private, you would still think, because it's nested inside this class, that it could still access all members. Because it's a nested class, I mean, it should automatically kind of be a friend, except that, if you have a nested class, whether it's private or not, but if you have private data or protected data, that nested class may not be able to access it without being declared a friend. That's my understanding of it. I could be wrong. There could be more to it than that. But if you want to access the private data, of your main class, you still got to be declared a friend of it. Although I thought that declaration, declared here would be declared here, but in the base class. But well, wait a minute. Oh, okay, yeah, it does work that way. So, like I said, if I see what's going on, see, this is protected. Since this nested class is protected here, it's calling ethical competition its friend, so that allows ethical competition to access its methods, its protected data. Because again, it's a completely kind of independent class, but it's contained inside class. So it does have access to class's methods and so forth, because it's a nested class, and I think that might include private members of it, in contrary to what I was saying earlier. But if not, you might have to actually say friend, connection, for example. Maybe. But that may not be necessary. It may automatically have access to private and protected and public members, in this class, because it's nested inside of it. But this class does not necessarily have access to this class's protected and private So, but by declaring a friend, that gives this class full access to this class's, um, methods, or members, rather. At least that's my understanding of how it works. So, I could be wrong. Um, but like I said, this example of theirs is so silly. I don't know what to make of it. And it had something to do with wanting to, I don't know, protect his data against other programmers, you know, uh, you know, for some fucking reason. So I don't, again, I could hardly even understand his desire to use this, in this example, let alone his example itself. I mean, this fucking example is total rubbish. So I know he was using the example of being some kind of modem application, but what the fuck does that have to do with competition, or what the fuck ever? I mean, it's just the stupidest example I've ever seen, and it makes it really hard to understand when people give stupid examples. I mean, it's bad enough you're trying to fucking understand the code, let alone a stupid example, which makes no sense. Um, without digging into it. But I don't want to try to understand a stupid example. I want to try to understand just a simple practical example and try to understand the nuances of the code in that. I don't need that extra complication. At any rate, I'm not going to deal with that very much. Just to point some of that out. Okay, and here we get into templates. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and do a different video on this.